In the heart of Chicago's bustling downtown, where skyscrapers cast long shadows over hurried pedestrians, Lila Bennett navigated the chaos with a frayed backpack slung over one shoulder. At 23, she was a cleaner at Pinnacle Enterprises, a corporate giant housed in a gleaming tower of glass and steel. Her life was a quiet struggle: minimum wage, a shared apartment with peeling paint, and a dream of college she could barely afford to entertain. But Lila had a spark, a stubborn hope that kept her moving, even on days when the world felt too heavy. It was a frigid December evening, the kind that bit through thin coats and made your breath cloud. Lila, exhausted after a 12-hour shift scrubbing floors and emptying trash cans, slipped into Pinnacle's ground-floor restroom to splash cold water on her face before the long bus ride home. The fluorescent lights buzzed overhead, casting a sterile glow. She didn't notice the sign on the door, "Men's," until it was too late. As she pushed open the door, she froze. There, adjusting his tie in the mirror, was Ethan Caldwell, Pinnacle's enigmatic CEO. Tall, with sharp features softened by tired eyes, he was a man whose name commanded boardrooms, but whose presence Lila had only glimpsed from afar, usually through the glass walls of executive suites she wasn't allowed to clean. Her heart sank. "Oh no, I'm so sorry, sir," she stammered, backing toward the door. "I didn't mean." Ethan turned, his expression more curious than annoyed. "Wrong room, I take it." His voice was calm, almost amused, but there was a weight to it, like someone carrying too much for too long. Lila nodded, cheeks burning. "I wasn't paying attention. I'll go." She turned to leave, but his voice stopped her. "Wait, you work here, don't you?" He squinted, as if trying to place her. "I've seen you somewhere." She hesitated, clutching her backpack strap. "I'm a cleaner. Night shift. Lila Bennett." Her voice was small, but she stood straighter, refusing to shrink entirely. Ethan nodded slowly, his gaze lingering on her worn shoes, the frayed hem of her coat. "Long day, long life," she said before she could stop herself, then winced. But Ethan didn't frown or dismiss her. Instead, he chuckled, a low, genuine sound that echoed off the tiles. "Tell me about it," he said, leaning against the sink. "What's your story, Lila?" She blinked, caught off guard. Why would a man like him care? But something in his eyes, maybe exhaustion, maybe something deeper, made her answer. "Just trying to get by, saving for school, but it's slow. Rent's due, bus fares add up, you know." She shrugged, embarrassed by her honesty. Ethan listened, really listened, his phone silent in his pocket. No trace of the impatient executive she'd expected. "What do you want to study?" he asked. "Social work," she said without hesitation. "I want to help kids who grew up like me. Foster care, tough neighborhoods. They need someone who gets it." He nodded, something unreadable passing over his face. "That's a good fight to pick." Then, glancing at his watch, he straightened. "You should get home. It's late." "Be safe, Lila." She mumbled a thank you and slipped out, her mind spinning. The encounter felt surreal, like a scene from a movie she'd stumbled into. By the time she reached her cramped apartment, she'd convinced herself it was nothing, a fleeting moment, forgotten by morning. But the next day, Pinnacle Enterprises was in chaos. Whispers rippled through the cleaning crew as Lila clocked in. Ethan Caldwell had made a shocking announcement. He was stepping down as CEO, effective immediately, and selling his controlling shares. By noon, the news broke. Pinnacle had a new owner, a reclusive billionaire who'd swooped in overnight. The company was restructuring, with rumors of better wages and benefits for low-level staff. Lila overheard supervisors muttering about unprecedented changes and employee-first policies. She kept her head down, mopping floors, but her mind kept drifting to Ethan's tired eyes. Days passed, and the changes became real. Lila's paycheck increased, enough to cover rent without panic. Pinnacle introduced a scholarship program for employees, and Lila, heart-pounding, applied. She was accepted, her tuition fully funded. She cried in her apartment that night, clutching the acceptance letter, feeling a weight lift she hadn't realized she'd been carrying. A week later, she saw Ethan again, not in a boardroom, but at a small coffee shop near the tower, where she'd stopped to warm her hands on a cheap latte. He was in a plain coat, no tie, looking less like a CEO and more like a man finding his footing. She gathered her courage and approached. "Mr. Caldwell?" "It's Lila. From the restroom." He smiled, Warmer this time. I remember. How's the scholarship? Her eyes widened. You knew? I recommended you, he said simply. Your story stuck with me. You've got something rare, Lila. Heart. She swallowed, unsure how to respond. Why did you sell the company? You didn't have to. Ethan's smile faded, but not into anger, something softer, sadder. I was running on empty. Built Pinnacle from nothing, but it stopped feeling human. I saw you, heard you, and it hit me. I'd forgotten what matters. Kindness. Purpose. You reminded me. He paused, sipping his coffee. The new owner, he's a friend. He'll do better. And I'm figuring out what's next. Lila stared, her latte forgotten. I didn't do anything. You did, he said firmly. You were honest. You cared. That's enough to change things. They talked longer about her dreams, his regrets, the way the world could surprise you. When they parted, Lila felt lighter, like she'd been seen for the first time. Ethan walked away, a man unburdened, ready to rebuild. Years later, Lila stood at a podium, a social work degree in hand, addressing a room of foster kids she'd mentored. She told them about a night in a restroom, a conversation that changed her life, and a man who'd reminded her that humanity could shift the world. Somewhere, Ethan was starting over, maybe teaching, maybe volunteering, Lila didn't know. But she knew this. One moment of kindness had rippled outward, touching lives neither of them could have imagined. And in that crowded city, under those towering skyscrapers, the world felt a little warmer, a little more human, because two people had stopped to listen.